Welcome to Small Towns Unscripted. I'll introduce everybody if I can remember. I think I know this guy, Jim Oscarson.
Hi, Ross.
Hello, Nancy Oscarson.
Hi.
The beautiful, how did this guy come out of such a beautiful person?
Oh.
I'm teasing. Jim's a good looking.
Really good genes.
And then Rick, Gavin, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see
This
you.
is the infamous Tara Chelan. My name is Russ McClellan. This is Nicole Turner. So thank you for coming today. And like I just was talking a bit, this is just about getting to know each other instead of each other, and hearing some stories from your past and what you've been up to, and how's life, and what are the good things, the not so good things, and hopefully when people watch this, we were talking about it the other day. We had Marion Peebles on and Diane, and at the end we're like, it's really not about us at all. It's really their family got so excited about a great grandchild watching grandma and grandpa on a podcast. That's sick.
Yeah.
And then I think it was Diane, or no, it was Lisa, his daughter, that was like, has a little bit of this going on, a little bit of that going on, but you got him to open up, and those memories that family is going to have, to me, is very, very important. Mm-hmm. So if nothing else, we got you here.
Yeah,
So.
I've heard from some people, and this has been a hope, but you never know if what you want is going to come into fruition or not. Mm-hmm. But I've heard from some people who were new-ish to Chelan area saying, I like to watch and listen because I don't know anything about, the history of this town or the people of this town, or, that they find it to be interesting as well.
Well, and
So
they get connected.
it hits.
Because, you fall in love with this place and how everybody is and how they treat you. And so then these podcasts have actually reached a lot of people where they're like, oh, now I can feel even more connected. I feel like I know more history of 50 years, even if they just moved here recently.
So ladies really cool. First, how'd you get here?
Well,
How'd you come to Chelan?
in 1967, my husband, Alden, got a job with Green's Drug Store as a pharmacist. And we moved here Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, boy.
And we rented an apartment, and it was called the Matson Apartments, across the street from Campbell's.
Like the landing or the other direction?
The other,
Caldwell.
well, it's their property now. Just across the street, it was called the Matson Apartments. And we lived in the upper apartment. Jim was 4.5 months old.
Oh my goodness.
And Alden walked to work up the street.
Oh my gosh, yeah, convenient.
Every morning, the lady of the lake would come into Campbell's dock, blow its whistle at 8:30 in the morning, and people would come, get on the boat, and go up lake, come back 5:30, 6 o'clock at night.
Now, was Green's Drug always in the same place?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
For me it was, yes, for us it was, but before that it was down the street. What, two places, Rick?
About 2 doorways.
Two
Down
doorway.
Lake.
And that
Down-
was
down
Chet Green.
Yes, Chet Green.
And
What a wonderful person.
yeah.
And
Where'd you come from?
we came from Missoula, Montana. That's where he graduated
Oh,
from the University of Montana.
okay.
Originally, I was born and raised in Priest River, Idaho.
Okay.
Wow.
No wonder Jim's such a good hunter. He came from
Yeah,
good hunting
stock.
genes.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Okay, all right.
And I worked there in Missoula while Alden was going to school. I worked at the university for a while, and then I worked at a savings and loan.
I have
So-
vivid memories of your dad and Alden in the back behind that.
Totally.
Remember?
Yes,
Had
and
the
Nancy,
glass-
I need a card, I need a gift, and here she is smiling and so nice.
Yeah. Jim was telling me, and I kind of remember, but you were really passionate about the decorations at the store
Yes, I was. Yes, every season.
every season.
Yes, and both the boys, Jim and Patrick, both worked there in high school, and that was there was a little window in the front of the store, and I always liked, like, Christmas, Thanksgiving, all the holidays, I'd change it. And that was one of my favorite things to do, is put in the window.
So how many years did you guys work there and then own it?
Well, Alden was a 50-year pharmacist.
Wow.
We went to the Red Wolf Lodge, is that where it was? And he received a 50-year certificate for being a pharmacist for 50 years. And, yeah.
That's
You know,
an
it just
amazing
isn't like
story.
that anymore, really. I mean, and not. I mean, we're even still in a small town, and that kind of environment of visiting the pharmacist, it just has a different vibe than it does now when you're standing in line at Walmart or Safeway or Walgreens, or just different.
At different times, people would call us at home after we would close at the store.
That's small town for you.
And they'd say, "We have a prescription. Would you come and fill it for us now?"
Oh,
And of course, he would do it.
Yeah, I got a cake for you, Alden. Come on over.
And he'd drive to the back of the store. And
Yeah.
Oh, we had
That's
Andy
all.
Precht and Kevin Precht, and Andy was saying how he had to drive the ambulance, like, and that's full service.
Right.
So you worked at the store growing up all through. Did you work
You
through
and your
high school
brother?
or what
Yeah.
else?
Oh, well, one of my first jobs was actually working for Rick at the Mirror office.
Nuh-uh.
Because you
Oh,
guys
yeah.
have been friends forever.
Yeah.
yes, we've been friends for
Stories I've heard was that Rick and Gay were the first couples friends my parents met
No way.
when they moved to Chelan.
yes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So
Life
yeah,
is
I worked at the
interesting, isn't it?
drugstore.
Is that what you did?
Well, I got paid.
Yeah, my dad.
So you're admitting something here.
I don't know how much work was done, but I was on the payroll.
My dad took me to Cats and Jammers and said to the owner of Cats and Jammers, my son needs a job. He's too slow in the orchard. He's costing me too much money. So I started washing dishes. He said I was better suited for that. I was like, I like getting paid and not having to. No, that's the problem, right
Oh
there.
my gosh.
They're
Okay.
going to make you work at dishwashing.
All right, Rick. I mean, I share with the world your story. How'd you get here?
Drove out here from Chelan.
Smarty
got it.
pants.
Well, just speaking of Green's Drug, my dad had worked in Kashmir at the paper 4 or 5 years, and the Chelan paper became available in 1937.
Wow.
So my dad came up here and bought the paper and started on July 5th, 1937. Chet Green and Esther's sister opened Green's Drug Store July 5th, 1937. So they both started at the same time. Chet lived here. He was from Chelan, if I'm not correct?
Yep, yeah.
Right.
His family was from
He
here.
graduated from Chelan High School.
Yeah,
Yes.
about 19.
This is
22
so
or something like that.
amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
So-
you had come from Kashmir,
My dad did.
you had been living in Kashmir.
No. Came up here in 37
Oh.
and lived here. I mean, they did ever since.
Okay, gotcha.
What year did you go to high school?
I graduated in 61.
What were you, Nancy?
I graduated 62.
Okay. 1961. So you
Oh
were.
my goodness.
Richard was about the same.
Yeah, I think he was a year. He was
1960.
a year
I
older.
think,
So
in Manson here.
Yeah.
So what was it like in high school and
Growing up here.
Well, I don't know. You just you're there.
good
you know?
times?
Oh yeah, sure.
Did you say, "Hey, write better articles about me, Dad"? Like, come on.
Right.
Did you play sports, or were
No.
you were you in that business in high school? Did you do like the?
Yeah, I'd go
media?
down to the Mirror after school and do some stuff. I mean, it may be running I didn't operate. When they were printing things, they'd say, "You come over here and you can feed this press." So they had it all set up, and I'd do that after school. And when I was about 10, the Mirror was located where I think it's Moonpenny is now.
Okay.
And go down there when I was about 10, Saturday mornings, and I would sweep the floor. And there was green and pink, oiled sawdust, and you sprinkle that on the floor, and then sweep it up, took all the dust and dirt up, and then fiddle with the linotype and not try to get into trouble. So off and on, about 10 years old, I started hanging around, so to speak. And
That stayed in your. So you worked there for like as a kid. That was like 25 years. Your dad had it roughly before you took it over.
well, 37 to, yeah, probably, yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And did you always know that like this is what I'm going to do?
Well, I won't say yeah, but pretty much.
Yeah, I think most of us that have followed our parents in business that we've talked to, including myself, kind of had a period of time where we resisted the idea and still ended up doing it.
Yeah, well, pretty nice place to live.
Pretty nice place.
Was then, still is. And when I got out of the Navy, I just started working. Well,
So you went in the Navy out of high school.
after a couple of years at Wenatchee Valley College.
Okay.
Yeah. And that just seemed to fit, because I've been doing enough of that mechanically, linotype and things like that, that I could operate and run some of the presses at high school age. And it just fit.
I love it. I love it. Like, what
Interesting.
a massive part of this valley, the Chelan Mirror.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
And so many of those newspapers, I think, are in the museum, right? Isn't there a historical record
Archive?
of archives of all of them?
Well, Chris Long lived in Chelan Falls. I don't know where, of course, but he was known for keeping every paper for a large number of years. And I think his collection is donated to the museum.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And there are some from the real early ones that the newspaper should still have. Because it started in 1890, I think it was August 1891.
Wow.
oh,
DeWitt's-
really?
Yeah, I believe that's correct. DeWitt C. Britt was his name. And it was located, of course, in Chelan Falls. And then at some point, I don't know, remember when, they trucked it up to Chelan and it became the Chelan Leader. It was Chelan Falls Leader. And after that, I don't remember many dates. We published a 75th anniversary edition, of course, in Chelan's 75th anniversary. And a lot of that history was found out then as far as the newspaper and other businesses.
That's cool.
And I don't remember some of the dates, but people by the name of Goodsell owned it prior to Kenny Kingman being the publisher. And Kenny Kingman owned it for a number of years, and that's who my dad bought it from in '37.
I love this.
Kenny became
I
the
know,
postmaster and then was in the insurance business, which his office at that point was right next door to the paper.
Now, do you get, have you over the course of owning that had people be upset with you?
Oh yeah,
How do you
Sure.
deal with that?
you're just one of those things. You know,
Rich
you-
told us a story
that.
about that, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody stormed in your office and
Fire him.
you need to fire Rich. And you go, he's freelance. He doesn't work for me. He's a consultant. Not
I
a
mean, I
boy.
don't know. Conflict is hard. That's I don't do well with conflict.
Politics.
But someone
Well-
coming in and being upset, that would be hard for me.
Once it's printed, you're
That's it.
you're out you're out there. so
Sorry.
that's what happens. But
Do
All
your
right. I
best.
think you got some tough skin, Rick.
yeah, you try not to create any problem or embarrass people. So
Sure.
Yeah.
once in a while, some mistakes happen,
Of course.
and some
That's
people
human.
are
Right.
All right.
some people just have a
All right.
reaction
So
to it.
where'd you meet? Where and when did you meet Gay on this journey?
Wenatchee Valley College.
Oh, was she a Wenatchee girl?
Yep.
Okay. And you drug her to Chelan with you.
Yeah. Right.
As I recall, I think.
Yeah. Came here and I got out of the Navy and let's see. Trying to think of the month, but it was right about the end of '67, and came here in early January '68.
So in the Navy, again, you were in the Vietnam years. Were you over there?
No. Then I was, I went in '64, and they sent me to the let me back up, to the Aviation Electronics School in Millington, which is north of Memphis. And I was there for almost 9 months, 10 months, and it's the Aviation Electronic Technician School. With my subspecialty of that was training devices, in which flight simulators was part of it, where you maintained and instructed pilots on, at that point, very primitive simulators.
Yeah.
On the flying. It was a single-engine jet simulator, and you had different scenarios where they learned to do emergency things and miscellaneous things in fog and dark and all kinds of stuff.
My son went into that. He was in the Marine Corps, and he went into the aviation side and aviation electronics. In fact, we had Lars. Larson. What's the last name? Joanne and Lars.
Sam.
Culinary Apple.
Yeah, don't put me on the.
What's Lars' last name? Anyway, we had him on the podcast.
Now that you asked me, I can't think of it.
He was a helicopter pilot, so they were going into that whole detail of what that entails.
Yes, thank you.
So there you go.
What is it?
Strandberg.
There you go. See.
Gosh.
Yeah, the instrument
A+.
training and that instrument training for the pilots. As with military, it meant I was in training devices. They sent me to the Anti-Submarine Warfare School in San Diego, where they had sonarman training, and they had sonarman training devices. So that's where I went. I spent basically 3 years in San Diego at the Anti-Submarine Warfare School with their sonar training, and it was quite interesting.
Pretty interesting, I bet. Yeah.
Yep.
So then did you have 3 kids? 4 kids?
Four.
4 kids.
4 kids. 4 beautiful kids. Rick and Gabe made beautiful kids. Could have had 10.
Oh no.
I'm just saying, they're beautiful, beautiful family. Yeah.
You made
Thank
beautiful kids too, except for Jim. But I'm sorry, I didn't see Jim.
I broke the mold.
Jim was always a nice guy. How'd you get him to be such a nice guy?
Oh, look at
Look
her.
at her,
look at
proud
her.
of him.
Look at her. Of course he's nice.
Jim, what'd you think about growing up in Chelan?
You know, it was super. You and I are about the same age, so you can relate to a lot of it. But boy, for me, from times that I can remember as little as I was, walking to the drugstore to see my dad when he was at work there, then starting grade school at Mo. After school, I would walk to the drugstore, down Main Street, sometimes with friends, and get a candy bar and hang out there.
I remember you had that candy rack right at the front.
Right?
All the kids knew that.
Yes,
Yeah.
everybody liked that.
So, Chelan was great fun from, little kid times to junior high to high school.
Oh, yeah. The best.
You had a
Able
good group
to-
of dudes with you. Like you played with like Greg
Yeah.
Talley, and
Yeah.
who else was on that team?
Greg and I are the same age, 85 graduates. Will Lundberg was on there. His
remember
dad
Will.
ran Trout Blue Chelan for a number of years. And then there was, years prior to that.
Mark Templin.
And,
Kuntz.
Templin was behind. Wade Miller was 2 years ahead. John Townsend, Okanagan County Police officer, I believe. He was 2 years ahead.
Was Wixom in there? Michael Wixom?
Wixom, he was a year behind, but he didn't play basketball.
He had a
But
big
yeah,
tall guy.
Templin's,
Did
Kuntz's,
you have a
Pete Roberts.
a big tall guy? I
Correct.
remember.
Yeah, his dad came our senior year to coach us. So yeah,
You're pulling a Brewster. Pulled in some guys.
right. Yeah, right.
We were talking about my senior year. We ended up playing. I think we played you guys, but I was a freshman when you were a senior. I think.
Well, I was
You're
85,
so I was a sophomore.
Yeah.
So we played, I think, and then I remember my senior year we played Chelan 3 times.
Yeah.
And it was always just a moneymaker, I think, because there were so many people back
Right.
then. We were talking
Sure.
about how there was no internet. It's dark at 4 o'clock. There's 3 channels on TV.
The rivalry.
What I want to talk about.
Everybody went to the games,
From
you know?
your perspective, was what was Chelan in the summer like? Those were like the glory days, I feel like.
Oh, it was fun.
So
It was-
much fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Like the start of Memorial Day.
Well, and then in the younger days, we had our BMX bikes, and so we had our little gang that we'd ride around town, and I mean, we'd ride to the city park and then cut back and actually cut into Campbell's property and ride the sidewalks in front of the beach bar and just had this route set
Well, it
up,
was
and
like
we would just repeat it all
started
day
at
long.
Cannons, right? That was Cannons back
Cannons before, yeah.
Sneak into the swimming pools.
Not so much that, but just
I remember doing that.
just ride through to see what was
Yeah.
going on.
then. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like those were the like kind of cruising days.
Yes, in fact, in front of Starbucks, this section of Manson Highway there, it was 2 lanes both directions back then.
Yeah.
So it was
Cruising city.
great for cruising because once it got congested, you had 2 lanes, just like Wenatchee Avenue did back in the Apple Blossom days. And so you'd have 2 cars alongside each other, all
Yeah, chatting it
held
up.
up to go across the bridge.
You guys probably just shaking your head like, oh boy, I remember those
Oh,
days.
yeah.
Well,
Jim was a good
and a
boy.
fun memory that I had working for Rick at the Mirror office, May 18th, 1980. I think it was a Sunday
It
morning.
was.
Yep.
Yes, it was.
And
Mount St. Helens.
so I'm sweeping like Rick did when he was a kid there.
Yeah.
And in 1980, I would have been 13 years old. So I'm sweeping away, and all of a sudden, boom, and the whole building shakes. Rick comes running back because at the newspaper, you had huge rolls of paper to make the newspapers, right? Well, they would have forklifts come in and stack these rolls up, and then when it was time to change a roll, you'd kick the little supports out from underneath that held them there and roll one out. Well, then the one that was stacked up would come down and hit the floor. Well, Rick comes flying back there thinking that I'm
that
trapped
fell down.
underneath one of these
Yeah,
rolls.
Yeah.
But actually, it was Mount St. Helens erupting.
Yeah,
So
huge.
that's
All
where I was
Then all
on
the
that
ash.
day.
You know what? That's one of those moments we talked about in our lifetimes. Those where were you when?
Sure.
I was totally. I can remember exactly, and I was not 13. I was 6,
Yeah.
and I still remember.
Disa has a T-shirt that says "I was 2 in the mountain blue." Of course, it's this big. You know.
All right. Speaking of Disa also used to use my ID
Oh,
because I'm a little bit older, and we are similar
Allegedly.
looking enough.
Allegedly.
We're all safe now.
Is there, you're past the time frame of getting in trouble?
Statute of limitations.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Because, again, Chelan's fun in the summer when you're young. And she was like, but I want to go to, whatever. I'm like, okay. It was a good time.
Sure.
We were safe. We're good kids. We're good girls.
I had somebody give me a fake ID once in high school, and I got pulled over, and I gave that fake ID to the cop.
Oh, no, you didn't.
I handed it to him. Never mind. He goes, hey, let me see that. It wasn't me.
Okay, well, Disa did get caught,
Uh-oh,
but
see?
not by the police.
She didn't voluntarily give that wrong ID to the cop.
By a boy that had come to Chelan for the summer to work at Casina del Lago. And she was with a group of friends and had my ID, and he carded her, and he goes, this isn't you. She's like, yes, it is.
oh, I can just see her doing that.
She almost ended up in the mirror.
He goes, I know that it's not you because I just took her to lunch yesterday,
Oh, yeah.
and you're not her.
Small towns.
Nobody got in trouble. It was fine. It was fun. It was all good fun, but it was funny.
That would be. Yeah. That would be
What do you
fun.
mean? Yes, I am.
Yeah. What was the biggest challenge do you remember in good times and bad times of running a newspaper in a small town? Was it like the political pressure, or was there any
No.
money thrown at you, or like something that people didn't want you to say? Or
Well, there's always that, of course. But it just that part of it was never a problem. What I remember that was kind of an in-between time was I think it was about 72. I could be off a year or so. The mill burned, and Penny's closed, and something else happened. Anyway, there were half a dozen or more buildings downtown that were empty.
yeah,
So the advertising base kind of shrunk,
right.
and so it took a little while for that to come back, and that I remember is kind of scratch your head, and it's kind of slow.
Yeah, I
But
bet.
overall, the condominiums that were being built after that,
Yeah.
Bear Mountain, wintertime, and you begin to see as you probably remember, the wintertime business come back, and the condominiums bringing more people in.
Yeah, we had
So
that
things kind of
conversation.
picked up.
Yeah, we had that conversation about small towns and how it's kind of a double-edged sword when you think about the growth of this town. And then you think about, well, what if there wasn't a lake? What would be, you can complain about growth and change. That seems to be inevitable no matter where you're at. But some of these small farming towns that don't have that tourism backup plan,
Oh yeah.
they're boarded up to this day. I
They're
mean,
looking pretty sad.
they never really made it out of that time in the 70s. Maybe
Yeah.
occasional runs here and there, but it's a double-edged sword for sure. So, you can think about the good times that we had growing up or the great times that you had or my parents had. And I still think it's one of the coolest places to be. I think things change, and they're still really good people, at least from my perspective.
For sure. Now, so I've had a store been in retail for 15, 16 years. You guys were doing it a lot longer than I was. Is the element of the pharmacy really the thing that you feel kept it going year round? I mean, it's still hard for me in the winter.
Well, that
Here,
was
and we're a bigger
constant,
town.
But when we came here, there was just, you had your summer, and then harvest time, and when harvest time was over, all the people kind of left, and it was
Yeah.
just a quiet little town.
Right. So how do you make it?
And
How do you make it all winter?
you just survived.
I love that Earl Stanford, right? Do you remember him? Earl and Judy. We had him on a podcast, and he's 90 now. But he said, yeah, we were dirt poor, but we didn't know it because everybody was dirt poor.
That's right.
Like there wasn't any Facebook telling each other, oh, I got a better car than you, or he goes, no, we just living
you
and,
just
and work together. He
you
talked
just-
a lot about that, helping
Yeah.
each other. And I think if you don't look at social media too long, you got to look at it to watch this podcast. But other than watching this podcast, people are nice. I really do believe that most people are good people, and we're very lucky to have what we have. And it's people like you that made this possible, right? There's these roots that you think about. 1937,
There wasn't much here.
no.
there wasn't much here.
Well, my dad said there was one street light in town.
That was a big deal,
As he
probably.
we lived up the street, across from where the Mirror has been. My dad built that building in, I think it was 52. We lived directly across the street. So he had
I
lived
knew
there for a number of years.
I knew.
And he'd walk up and, back to work and back and forth, and it was one street light, which probably was on Emerson and Wooden Avenue back then. There wasn't much going on. I was just thinking the other day, the taverns, it was called the Lower Tavern,
Yeah,
the Middle
Middle
Tavern,
Tavern,
and of course it was a
Dale's.
sandwich shop where Dale's
Oh.
was, and whatever's there now I don't remember. And one of those places, the Middle Tavern or the Lower Tavern, had a back bar brought around the horn, and it's inside one of them. I don't know which one it is. I can't remember. But stuff like that.
Yeah.
An earthquake, and I don't remember the earthquake, but the upper floor of what was BC McDonald Lakeview Hotel, the upper floor, the middle floor slants a little bit down the center. An earthquake in who knows when, 1928 or something, it split a little bit, and there are bolts holding it together. If you go to look at the outside, you see nuts and plates
Oh, yeah.
on these
Yes.
things that they hold it together with.
Do you remember what that was before it was Gucci's? Because it was Gucci's before
It was
BC's.
the Lower Tavern.
That was called the Lower Tavern? Is that what the
It
name
was
was?
Or
another-
the town.
It was another
Was it the
restaurant.
Town Tavern?
No, I
No.
don't think so.
We were trying to remember all the restaurants because we were talking about Sand and Surf.
Sand and Surf. Oh, that was
Clubs.
wonderful.
That was by Marson and Marson. Is it right in there?
It was
No.
where the 76 is. on that
76
corner.
is right.
Yeah.
And then there was, did that one turn into like Backdoor to Texas or something
Yeah.
like
Yep.
that?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Correct.
Backdoor to
Uncle
Texas.
Uncle Bub's.
Uncle Bub's
That was up the street.
Yeah, which was Hughes before that. Greta Griffith and her husband.
And there was a little,
Oh.
across from the drugstore, there was John's Market, and there was a balcony restaurant there.
Balcony
John
cafe.
Bigsby
The
owned
Balcony Cafe, huh?
Balcony Cafe.
So
No,
I remember the
I
shoe
don't.
store being,
Yes, it was
Oh,
there
the shoe
too.
store was there, yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
that
Polly's.
Paulie's?
Polly's.
Yeah.
Dwayne and Lloyd Polly.
Had that forever.
Uh-huh.
And we
The
were
only
getting
store
pants or
that's
something.
left from when we came here is Kelly's Hardware.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
wow.
so cool.
That's like landmark right there.
Yep.
Yeah, what other places do you remember? The Crockery?
The
Oh,
crockery.
yeah. Was that where the bank is?
Yeah, that's where the bank is now.
There
What
was
was
Chelan
that?
Lumber.
That was Chelan Lumber.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aston's. That was probably your
Aston.
competition,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like that was
Well-
the other pharmacist?
I was trying to remember. It was either when Emmett opened the store or when Bud Duhamel went to Alaska is why we came here.
So Emmett was the pharmacist.
Emmett, and so was Bud Duhamel. And they were both employed by Green.
Oh,
Chet
so
Green.
one left and
Oh, I
did
see.
something, and then it opened it up
You're
for.
right, yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So Emmett worked for Chet Green.
Yeah,
He opens Aston's. The other guy goes to Alaska.
And
then
we come.
Alden came in and you guys came in.
yeah.
That's great history.
And
And back then, weren't there 3 pharmacies? Because I think there was one down by the old coffee pot.
Well, there was-
At the
Oh, like Company 107?
The clinic.
no, it was across the street. What was that called, Rick?
Where? What?
Well, there was a drugstore, like where.
Company 107 was.
Well,
No, that
was-
was Kerr. That was where
Bill,
Emmett went.
Bill,
Oh,
Bill,
okay.
Bill Keir.
Cure.
Yeah.
But across the street
We'll
from
get there.
like Chelan Realty. There,
Oh, that was Greaves Pharmacy.
Greaves, that's
now, this
it.
is that place has been, I don't know how old it was or how old the pharmacist was, Greaves, but it was, you go inside and it was dark. Had lights from the ceiling. And I don't think he really operated much when I was a kid even. Maybe so. I don't really know. But
And that went out as
I think it just kind of faded away. I
faded
don't know
away.
what happened.
Yeah,
You had the one bottle for everything?
I don't know. Could have.
Just kidding.
The tonics and
Yeah, just kidding.
But he had a
Just kidding.
Terraplane car. It was, I believe,
What is
produced
that?
by Chrysler.
Oh.
And I remember where he lived, across from Safeway, and you'd ride your bike or whatever, and you see that Terraplane out there. Wow, that's kind of cool.
literally never heard that word before.
Yeah.
There was some cool cars in your era. Growing up. What's
that
the
was-
car you have out there? You were just talking about.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a Chelan story in itself, Russ.
Okay.
When I was a kid, just out of high school, my girlfriend wrecked my truck, and I needed some wheels. And growing up, spending lots of time at Rick and Gay's house with Mom and Dad, and or his brother Charlie's house, there was this really cool '65 Buick Riviera that sat out there for the longest time. And so when this accident happened, I needed some wheels, so I went over to Charlie and I said, "Hey Charlie, I've been eyeing this thing forever and it hasn't moved in forever." I said, "I got $500, can I buy it?" And he said, "Sure." And so Dad and I went over that night, and I only had $400. So I gave him the 400, and he said, "Well, give me the 100 next whenever." And then he said, "Don't worry about it." So we towed the car home that night, got it running that night. And that car was originally ordered by Rick's and Charlie's father, Babe Gavin, in 1965.
Wow.
Delivered here to Chelan. And then later in life, I lost the car, and a friend, local law enforcement person, Sean Duke, bought it. Who he was a neighbor of.
He was neighbors of Charlie
Right. So
and Terry.
Right. So when he was growing up, he had to look at this car all the time too and wanted it. But I got it first, and then he got it second. And then a couple years ago, he called me up and said, "Hey Jim, I'm thinking about letting the Riv go. Do you want it?" And I'm
Get
like,
out.
"Yeah, I'll be there tomorrow." So
Now it's out front.
Is
Yeah.
this why Terry's place was called Babes?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was where the dentist office is, behind
Yeah.
the Safeway gas. Or in
Yeah.
front of it, I guess you'd say.
I never knew why it was called Babes.
Yeah,
which
that's-
the year that opened was about the same time that I bought the car. So I had just worked and got it all shined up, and so I would drive it down there And I actually worked for Terry
At Babes?
at Babes, washing dishes. Oh yeah, I did. Water
So you worked for every
slides,
Gavin,
city
basically.
park, garbage pickup, yeah, whatever. But anyways, Babe, he got to see the car all shined up after years there, so that was pretty cool, I thought.
I mean, this whole thing is. As the world turns, you're making our small town even smaller, Jim.
It's pretty connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the old pictures, speaking of the Greaves Pharmacy, I don't remember their names, but anyway, if you see a picture of downtown Chelan from possibly where Kelly's Hardware is, looking up that street, there's a Rexall sign, and that's where Greaves Pharmacy was. And I don't remember what building it is exactly, but that's...
Okay.
You're probably good friends with Mike Richardson too, then, and the Clampets.
Clampets.
They were-
Oh, that
she was there
wonderful.
forever.
Oh, amazing.
Amazing
That's how
place.
we became friends with so many people. Was
She's an
you know,
amazing person.
my mom shopping there and getting hooked up with all those ladies.
My dad would walk in like at Christmas or something.
Oh,
and
yes.
She'd box up an outfit for
Yeah.
my
Oh,
dad.
you think did you do that a few times, Rick?
Pardon me?
Did you do that a few times? Call Mike and get Gay a gift?
Oh, yeah.
I know what
Boxed up
Patty
from
likes.
I'd usually
Clampets?
do like his dad, though, and walk in.
Yeah.
Just walk in
Yeah,
and then
say-
she'd do it, and here's
Yeah, here you go. I know
picked
what
out
Gay
another
likes.
good one.
What do you think? What do you got? Type of thing. And then-
You know,
I know what your wife
Um,
wants.
I feel like you
She's
must
great.
have a type because Gay was a lovely woman, very nice. That's all I can remember about her, is just lovely and nice, a smile, welcoming. Her job at Campbell's, I told you I was going to cry.
Mm-hmm.
Her job at Campbell's couldn't have been more suited for her personality. I mean, just the warmth and welcoming that you got from her, amazing. Nancy, I feel like wonderful woman, beautiful, kind. I mean, the same thing. You walk into Greens, this is what you felt.
Thank you.
You're a lucky man. You're blessed, my friend.
So that's a tough time you went
You're
through
blessed.
when your wife passed away in the car accident. Huh? Was it 12
Yeah.
12 years ago?
I think you're right.
Grief. Grief is something that is hard to it's hard to explain. And I've been pretty lucky, you know. I know your mom passed away, my mom and dad passed away, but yeah, it happens to all of us. I mean, your son recently,
I think it's when it happens early.
your husband passed away
Is when it
in
Yeah.
2018.
2018.
Yeah,
Very
so
difficult.
very difficult, huh? You know, my grandma Daisy, do you remember her?
Yes.
She lived to be 101, but she outlived 3 husbands. And I used to say, you're kind of hard on men. And she'd be like, they just can't keep up with me. She was like 5 feet tall, right? And I'm like, and then I asked her, I go, well, what's that like? You know, because it's hard to think about that until you've been through it. And she was
Yeah,
through
you
it
don't
3
know.
different times. And I go, did you love them all? And she goes, she looked at me dead in the eye. And she was, I don't remember, in her 90s, but she was super sharp. And she goes, I loved them all differently. I thought that was a pretty profound, you know, I've been divorced. I loved my first wife, still do. She's great friends, you know. Love my second wife. I mean, you love, but it's different, right? Not better or worse, just different, you know. And I feel that was pretty profound. So it's neat to see.
It is.
Neat to see, you know, people that can get through that.
That's cute. This is cute. You guys.
You're cute, Rick. You're cute.
It's, don't you think it's cute?
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
so cute. I mean, oh gosh.
You know, growing up again in Chelan, our holidays, our weekends off, the barbecues or whatever, we were either at Mom and Dad's at the pool or we were at Rick and Gay's
On the
the
lake.
lake. Just growing up all the time. So, you know, fast forward to 2025. You know, here's 2 people that I grew up with all the time. You know, he's like
Yeah.
a second dad.
Yeah.
It's cute.
And,
It's just,
and you
I
didn't
can't
even need
get
Facebook
over
to
it.
get reconnected. That's amazing.
Right? Yeah.
So that's what a lot of people are doing now. They get divorced. They go back to those connected times in high school. And you often see that where people are meeting their high school sweetheart later in life
Yeah.
because of the commonality, because of the friendship.
commonality.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's hard to imagine spending my life with someone or time with someone who doesn't have an understanding of that, of that history, of that connection. Like, you don't know my mom. How can you know me?
I know.
Or just shared history with people. That is, that's priceless.
Yeah, I get that
That's
too.
priceless.
And it was great for me because I didn't have to put Rick through a background check.
Right. Right.
That's true.
You're like,
Or worse. or worse.
Yeah.
Rick's like, Jim, I'm good, right? Yeah.
I'd have never passed. That's for sure.
it's true though. It's
That was a good one, Jim.
Yeah.
He probably did. He just didn't tell you.
yeah. No,
that's
it's I don't know what else to say. It's very cute. I love it. It's endearing.
Well, a lifetime of friendship and support right there, right when you need it the most.
Yeah. I love it so much.
Do you guys, I'm curious, and tell me if you just want me to shut up about this. Do you, I mean, like, I don't know if it's appropriate. Do you guys talk about each other's as friends? Like when you're talking about, Nancy, when you're talking about
Gay or
Oh, yeah.
is it like
Yeah.
perfectly normal to talk about each other in a loving?
We would go on vacation together, and we'd go to Las Vegas, and
now
We'd be
Nancy,
saying-
what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
we'd
That's
be
funny.
playing slot machines and that, and many times people would say, "Are you sisters?" And we just giggle and laugh and say, "No, we're just best friends."
That's great.
And that was the way
Yeah.
it was.
Oh.
Well, it's a great example of that life continues to move forward no matter what. And Jim, you and I talked yesterday about your son, and I asked you if it'd be all right if we talked about it. And you said something to me just straightforward. Your son passed away, and you said, I'm going to hit it head on.
Right.
I don't have a lot of choice. And I wanted to talk to you about that because I thought that was such an admirable, courageous thing to say. And to be here today. And I thought to myself, it might be helpful for someone else that maybe is going through something
Right.
that seems to be happening more and more, and people die all the time, sadly. But you're an amazing man. I've known you a long time, and your courage you're showing right now is incredible. So,
Well, thanks. And it's tough. I mean,
Yes,
you-
very.
your
it's
grandson.
it's a hand that you're dealt that nobody wants, but what else do? You got to get up and
Eric
I do.
was-
I get up
how old
every
was
morning.
Eric? How old-
Eric was just about 3 weeks shy of his 30th birthday.
Yeah.
And and talk about growing up in Lake Chelan. Here I'm talking about walking to the drugstore and doing all that, but when he was young, he and his sister, when they were done at school, they'd walk to Green's drugstore and get a candy bar and hang out until Lorenda or I could show up to take him home. And so, he got to experience that same small town,
Yeah.
He was
community
he was an athlete
thing.
too. He loved sports.
Oh yeah, he I think the only sport that he didn't letter in out of freshman through senior year was his 9th grade basketball, which is probably his best sport.
Right. Yeah.
But
he grew.
I don't know too many other people that lettered. What is that?
Like 12 letters.
11 out of 12
yeah.
possible.
Wow.
Yeah.
He get into golf.
Oh yeah,
You guys-
he lettered his freshman year in golf.
I've seen some pictures of you with him and over
Yeah.
the years playing in tournaments
Yeah.
together.
The last few years we played in some Chelan tournaments. We won it a couple of times, and it's kind of funny. There was a team that throughout history here the last 20 years, my good friend Tony Berger, who had passed away, he was one of our men's club presidents.
I remember Tony. Yeah.
Tony and his son, they won everything together. Burger. If anybody else saw Burger on the tee sheet or the starting assignments, they're like, oh, we don't have a chance. And so one of the best compliments I got a few years later after Eric and I had won a tournament up there is Mike came up to me and he says, you know what? He goes, you guys are going to be the next burger.
Most people know, but Jim, you've been a golf pro at Chelan City Municipal Golf Course for, I don't know how many years.
Well, I started in '87. Couldn't figure out what I wanted to do in life. And Vaughn Smith was kind enough to take me in and kind of mentor me. He and his father, Tom Smith. And I worked there until '89, got married, moved to Las Vegas. Missed Chelan, as I think anybody would that moves away. I mean, you know, Las Vegas, there's no lake, there's no mountains,
Yeah,
really.
yeah,
It's
yeah, it's a
just-
lot different.
anyway, so came back, and then Vaughn went to Desert Canyon in 1994, and I moved up the ladder, and I think this is my 34th or 6th year.
gosh.
Yeah,
there
I've been in
now.
real estate almost exactly the same amount of time. I
Yeah.
started in the 80s, 89. But so I bet Eric would go to get some candy, go up to the golf course, hit range balls, go play. You know, I bet
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like
Just-
you provided. You know, thing about growing up here, it's an amazing life for kids. It's
Oh my
amazing.
gosh.
It's an amazing place to grow up.
It is amazing. It still is.
So Jim,
and,
just
and when they say it takes a community,
yeah.
it does, because there are times when, you know, you get the phone call. I know my parents got numerous phone calls. Alden, this is Marv Stalker,
Marrying people.
and and your
Please, Chief.
son was plowing the middle snow piles out of Wooden Avenue. You know, you might want to talk to him.
Oh,
you know,
Jim,
something
good for
dumb
you.
like that. It does. There's, you know, the community takes care of everyone.
After your loss of your son, how do you feel about the community now?
Oh my gosh, that it was incredible.
I bet it's hard too, though, Jim.
Totally.
I bet it's hard to like every single person ask you about it.
Yeah, that's a really hard part about grief in a small town.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I remember this when my dad passed away, and Mom was struggling hard.
That was pretty
And-
sudden too, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Well, yeah. I mean, he got sick, and we had about a month as he was dealing with his cancer. But I told Mom, I said, you know, there's going to be some unexpected things that probably come up. And I said, somebody's going to come up to you in 6 months and say, oh, I haven't seen Alden. How's Alden?
Oh, yes, it happened.
And so I said, Mom, you might want to prepare yourself for that. And it does. I mean,
It did.
everybody that loses people, at some point that probably happens. And it's not that people have ill, you know, feelings about it. They just don't know.
Yes.
And of course, I've had that happen with Eric, and you know, people will ask how things are. And, you know, like I told you, you just got to face it straight up. It's nothing that I would wish on any parent.
Can't even imagine.
And you know, stay involved. That's the one thing too. Talk to your kids. You know, I thought Eric had it. You know, he's athletic, he's
Good-looking
smart, he
kid,
had a
man.
job, he's good looking, everything came easy to
Charismatic.
him. And you know, when I talked to him, he said, yeah, all good, Dad, all good. So, you know, you just never know. You got to keep those lines of communication open,
He was
and then if you suspect something might be off, or friends or something, you know, don't. If I could say anything to anybody out there, don't hesitate to talk to someone else that might be able to jump in and help. Because I think in cases like Eric's, I think there's signs, and you just gotta. Act on 'em.
So this whole thing that's happening in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Can we get into that or no?
Sure.
It's a recreational drug use, right?
Right.
Has a little fentanyl in it, right?
Well, it can. That wasn't Eric's
Wasn't?
situation, but you just never know. And you know, it's a
Either
different
way.
So
world.
I don't know what
Either
happened.
way, it's a
I
big-
don't know.
Well, he died of a cocaine overdose.
So it was just, but it wasn't fentanyl.
Hmm?
Well, no fentanyl.
No fentanyl.
Interesting.
Or at least that's what the medical examiner says.
Yeah,
So-
that's dropping people, like the fentanyl thing's dropping people like crazy, like first-time users.
Correct. And I've had other people come up to me since learning about my son's death and say, well, the same thing happened to my friend's son.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, really? Well, we haven't even talked. How do you know what happened there?
Yeah.
And they said, well, yeah, he smoked some pot or something, and it was laced with fentanyl. And I'm like, well, fentanyl wasn't involved here, but with the fentanyl, it could be in anything.
Anything, yeah.
Yes.
You know, these
It's
street
so scary.
drugs, or you can't trust people.
No, and it's just tragic, and
It is, because it's all preventable.
Yeah, man, sucks.
Drugs are, yeah.
And Rick, your wife passed away in a car crash, so you know what a little bit about grief is too. And like I said, I've been pretty lucky, but when you talk to people, it's such an individual thing. Like there's nothing that compares to anything else. It's kind of like you lose somebody, and obviously the younger, it seems like it would be harder, but still it's hard anytime. I mean, my dad died in 2020, and I didn't know he was in his 80s. I thought he was in his 50s. I never really put two and two together that he didn't look any different. Then one day he got a stroke. It's 4 years later he's dead.
Yeah, but I think there's something intrinsic about grief where every situation is unique.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's just very, very.
But there's a constant as well. There's a constant underneath that connects people because you now understand something at a primal level that you didn't understand before. You'd seen it, you'd heard about it, but until you experience it, I think.
I'll throw an example out, if that's okay.
Please.
Of course.
After my dad died, which I never expected, but we had about a month-ish to talk and share and be around each other a lot. And then I was there with him when he passed. But shortly after that, there were some weird things that happened. Number one, shortly after he passed, as sad as I was, I had energy, and I don't know where it was coming from.
I get it.
And I thought, well, this is kind of weird. But so I'm at my house one day. I got the windows open. It's spring. Dad passed in April of 2018, and so it's a springtime day, and I got the windows open, getting some fresh air in the house and stuff. Well, I had his ashes sitting on my counter in a box. And above the counter, I had a whole bunch of pictures up on the wall. Well, one of them is this picture of Dad at Vernita Bridge with about a 45-pound salmon. Just a really cool picture of him, because my dad loved to fish. And anyways, it's calm, fresh air in the house, and all of a sudden, this gust of wind comes into the house and blows stuff everywhere. And it knocks this picture of him with the salmon off the wall, and I'm watching it, and it's stuff flying all around, and this picture comes down and lands face up on his ashes. And the box of ashes is only like 4 by 6 on the top, about the same size as the picture. So for it to actually land and stay there was
awesome.
Crazy miracle.
That's an awesome story.
So I was thinking that was kind of weird.
And then,
But I thought it was a sign, right?
of course.
And then there's some other little signs that I'm going to keep to myself. But when my brother and mom and I went to spread his ashes, one of his favorite fishing holes up on the Meadow is the Miller Hole. You're probably aware of that. And the Miller Hole, you drive through Pateras and go down along the water, but then you've got to wade across this one little body of water to get out to this island to get in the spot where the fishing's really good. And I remember going up there and just nailing them with Dad for numbers of years. And he was always so proud because he'd he'd fill a whole steelhead punch card out and have to go get another one. So, I mean, that's like 30, 40, I don't know how many was on a card back then.
Back in the day. Yeah.
Multiple cards. So we're up there, and you know, I'm telling my mom, well, you're just going to jump on my back. We're going to wade across this body of water. We're going to get out to that island where Dad would like to fish, and we'll spread his ashes.
You're just going to do it, Nancy.
Right?
We're just yeah.
You're
And
just going to do it.
I think I brought waders and all 9 yards, but I got there and I thought, you know what, that's really a dumb idea, Jim, because you're going to get Mom on your back, and you're going to slip, and you're going to dump.
gonna go on
We're all going to end up in the water.
Get your life jacket.
Right. So we abandoned that idea, and we're standing there, and I said, yeah, Mom, I go, right out there is where Dad really liked to fish. And right when I do that, and this was in October, actually October 12th,
Right.
as I remember,
That's right.
which was their anniversary.
Oh, that's neat.
I point out to this hole where Dad liked to fish. And up, and I mean, we're 100 yards away. Up out of the water comes this steelhead
Giant.
doing this splash.
Pretty magical.
And I look at my brother, I go, did you see that? And, you know, our eyes are all like that. But
Everybody saw it.
I love those. I love those.
that was a
signs.
good sign.
I mean, don't you?
Yeah, I know what he means.
I love
Happens
those
to me all the
signs.
time, you know,
Yeah.
differently. And like you said, there's a lot of things that are not going to make sense to anybody else. But
No, but it hits you.
It hits you.
Right. So then fast forward now to this past fall with Eric, my son. No signs. Which has been hard.
Yeah.
But in January, Saturday morning, I'm laying in bed. Camille had already got up, and she's like, hey, Jim, you need to come out here and look at this. And I'm like, what? And she says, I think there's a moose out here. And I'm like, oh, no, it's probably somebody's horse. So anyway, walk out front. Cooper, my dog's going nuts barking, and here is a bull moose out in front of our house. So I took that as the first sign.
there you
from
go.
I think that's a big one.
It was big.
That's a big sign.
Seems like it makes sense.
So who knows?
Who knows? Well, and what you're doing right now is maybe part of all of that. You know, those things are hard to explain. And going through what you're going through is impossible to explain. So
Yeah, it's tough.
you just got to do it. But
Right.
you're doing it in such a way, Jim, that's so stoic. And I think it also, at least from my perspective, remembering Eric, this is part of it. You know, talking about Eric. And that, you know, like, I don't know, it's not the same probably, but I talk about my dad all the time. And the memories that I have I mean, anybody will talk about my dad, I'm talking to him.
Right.
And I love to hear about it. And I'd imagine that's what we're doing right now. We're
Absolutely.
You know, Eric was an amazing young man. I mean, and you have a shit ton of memories
Yep.
with him, man.
Oh, we got some great ones.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
lived a good,
He was
strong.
my first grandchild.
Yeah.
First.
hmm
He was the best.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a good kid.
Not my others aren't
I
good.
get it. No,
But the first one always has a special place in
Yeah.
your heart.
he stole the
Well,
most
made
candy.
you a grandma. I
And
mean,
me, yes, I
You-
got to
Made
be
you a
grandma.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And he called me G-Ma.
Gma.
G-Ma.
I love that.
Well, thank you for sharing all the. You know, the tragedy is sadly not going to be avoided by anyone in
No.
life. It's
Right.
just a matter of time. Nobody's getting out alive, so
That's right.
it's important to be able to help other people go through it when you can, and you're doing that. I'm confident you're doing that by being here today and talking
For
about
sure.
Eric. And he was a beautiful kid, man.
Yeah. Well, and
Beautiful man.
another sign, which is kind of odd, here just a few weeks ago, a guy walks into the golf course, and he says, "Are you Jim?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "I heard you lost your son recently." And I'm like, "Yes, I did." Who are you?
Yeah.
And well, this gentleman had lost his son this past fall as well, and he wanted to get some men together because he didn't feel like the fathers necessarily had a real good support group out there in the community.
Yeah, I would agree
and,
with that.
And so he's like, yeah, we're going to do this little get-together. It's at Smitty's. It's going to be the 27th of February. We'd love to have you come down. And I'm thinking, I don't want to go down there. But I thought, and I had to be there at 7 o'clock in the morning. So anyway, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it. So I go there. I walk in. I see a guy that I know that I didn't know was going to be there, who I knew through golf, and he had lost his daughter. Her name's Taylor. And I said, Ted, Jim, how you doing? You know, it's nice to see you. Haven't seen you in a long time. And I said, I've got a picture on my phone of my son with your daughter.
Really?
He's from Wenatchee, and
world.
you know, back in high school, Eric had gone to a dance with Taylor, and he gets on his phone. He goes, "You mean this one?" So,
Oh, Ted Fukuzawa.
yes,
Yeah, I went to school with Taylor.
yeah.
Tragic.
So,
Yeah, she was beautiful.
Yeah, that was tragic.
yeah, totally.
Yeah, Ted's
So
a
you're
good
meant
friend.
to be there.
But right, so you know, I wasn't going to go, and then I thought, well, I'm just going to go, and you know, we're all in this together, I guess,
Yes.
one way or another.
Well, it's neat for you to open up because I think a lot of people don't know what to say to people that haven't been through it.
Sure.
And it helps to just not like humanize it. You know, like it's okay to say whatever you want to say.
But you can say his name, or you can say their name, or
Right.
we can talk about it.
Right.
I remember I
We wanna
texted
talk
Jim,
about it.
I don't know what, I said there's no words. I didn't know what to say, so I said that. And you said there are none. And I don't know if that is a good thing to do or not a good thing to do, but
Oh, the text messages, the calls, the cards.
yeah.
Well, and then also, you know, with my job, I come across a lot of people,
Yeah.
Every day.
and you know, people that wouldn't necessarily know what's going on in your personal life or whatnot. But
Right.
it's been amazing to me the people that have come up that I know from the West Side, only as their first name, checking them in.
Right.
But they're like, Jim, you know, how's it going? How's the family? And then I say, well, I lost my son. Oh, I'm so sorry. You know, I lost my son or daughter too, which, you know, you would never known unless
Never
you
known.
open that dialogue. And so,
Well, that's part of this is, you know, this is what we're
Yep.
here to do is like get to know you instead of you. And then what you said earlier, you know, about awareness, about in today's world especially, that there's so many dangers out there that and it's not just a drug issue, it's a depression issue, it's an anxiety issue. There's some things happening right now that are new to the world, in my opinion. And I don't know exactly why or what it was all about, COVID, social media, whatever it is. But it's good to your point, I think that's a heartfelt statement. If you have any inclination at all, you know, step in.
sure.
Try to, right?
And you know, people need to know that whatever situation might be popped up in front of them and you think it's all doom and gloom or whatever, a lot of things do pass.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Hang in there.
Give hope a chance.
right.
And don't be afraid to raise your hand if you're anybody, a man, a woman, anybody. Like, raise your hand. There's
But
a guy
then
like you to talk
also-
to, I think.
But also to release yourself from the guilt of the idea that you missed it
Oh,
in
sure.
your mind.
Oh, that's a hard
Because
one.
I can tell you from the knowledge that I have of drugs in my recent history, there was nothing I could do to help the person that needed help. There was not one thing I could have said, not one thing I could have done. Their path, while it didn't end in death, did end in a death of his life, in a way, and I couldn't have done anything. And he can tell me that there's not a thing that you could have done. So sometimes it just is how it is.
Right.
Yeah, well,
Right.
every situation is so unique. Like, there's no like broad brush in this stuff. It's
No.
like individualized.
No.
But you know,
You gotta let people
you
live
said
their
it,
life
Jim.
too.
We're all going through it together, one way or another, and you know, it's just beautiful to see happy people
Oh my gosh.
after tragedy, after you lose someone. It's good to see
Someone's.
you guys connected, and And thank you for coming. I mean, we've been talking, I don't know how long it's been, over an hour
I
already.
don't know, it's been great.
Yeah, it's
Goes
been,
by quick.
it does go by
Doesn't it?
quick. Would you do it all over again, Rick? Would you go back to the Mirror and start again? Or would you rather, if you had it all to do over again, would you do something else?
I don't know what it would be.
Yeah.
I always think, though, if I'd have stayed in the Navy, I'd been retired at 40 years old instead of 70. But no, I doubt it.
You had a good life here in
Yeah,
the business
yeah.
world, and
Yeah.
you know,
Family.
yeah.
And I grew up doing that. You know, I'd go to work with my dad at night. He'd go back and work at night. In the summer, people went on vacation, of course, so my dad we'd go into the back and do the work, setting up the paper. In those days, it was hot lead type stuff, and a lot different than pushing a little button on a computer like it is now.
Yeah, were you worried when the internet? Were you in business when the internet
Oh, yeah.
came out?
Yeah.
Were you worried that something was going to change the industry completely?
No, I really didn't have that idea at that point. I mean,
Yeah.
we had our pages on the web, but it wasn't something you really, at least I didn't, think about that transpiring.
Yeah. What was their circulation like at your peak? Do you remember?
Around 3,300,
Yeah.
which was Chelan Manson.
Jeez.
Yeah, and
That's
now
like the whole town.
it
Well,
seems like a
it
lot of
sounds-
people are.
It sounds like a lot, but Chelan Manson has a lot more people than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot.
Did you have the online webpage? Did like Chris Raines hook you up back in the day? Or?
No, we just did it. Had a guy, where was he from? I think he's actually from Kashmir, and he would come up and take care of that for us.
Yeah.
Well, we had all the full page. You could read the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
And there was no charge. I mean, we just did it. But that's about as far as I remember. And then after that, then the computers came along and it took care of it.
Yeah. Interesting times.
Yeah.
Well, and I got to throw this out because there's
Do it.
something that nobody in here knows
Oh.
that
Yeah,
Rick
please.
was quite as big a daredevil as he actually is. But
Please do tell.
Yeah, tell Rick. Tell Rick.
You look so mild mannered.
He wants to know.
Clark
Yeah.
Kent over there.
and I'm sorry that I can't remember your buddy's name.
Oh, I'll tell
But
you. I think I know what you're talking about.
Evil
Go ahead.
Knievel.
Well, it's close to Evil Knievel, but
Come
they
on.
kept their wheels on the ground.
What?
Uh-huh.
They Rick told a story, I think just last summer,
Oh.
that him and his friend would
Oh, yes.
ride down the Chelan Falls Road, but this was the Chelan Falls Road before
Yeah.
any of these new upgrades
yeah,
to
yeah.
it. So,
Right.
I mean, the Chelan Falls
The
Road,
back
the
way.
paved road, no, not the dirt road.
Not the dirt road.
The current Chelan Falls Road was really only about one lane wide at a time.
Well, it was narrow because of the rocks and
Right.
go off the edge type thing, so it wasn't very big.
All right. So what'd you do?
Well, his name is Larry Kirk, and we grew up together. He and I were in school together, grade school on up, and we decided probably, I don't know who was dumb enough to think of it, get on our bicycles and ride to Chelan Falls, down the Chelan Falls highway. And I had a speedometer on my bike, and I think it went to 60, and it was close. I don't know how accurate that
man.
was, but it was close to that. And every once in a while, I think about, holy Toledo, how much skin would you have left if you
How
actually
much?
had a problem? And we did that. We rode all the way down, across the bridge down in Chelan Falls, and then walked back up the old road.
I was gonna say, how'd you get back? You had to push your bike all the way
yeah,
back?
well, yeah, up the old road.
It's crazy.
That was
But
completely.
that was crossing the old Chelan Falls Bridge
Right,
too, right?
right.
That's now closed, yeah.
My dad lost a fruit truck on that road. He had to jump out
Oh my!
because the brakes went out. So he bailed out and went over the cliff
Did
Oh.
you used to party on that bridge?
No.
on the Chelan Falls Bridge.
You didn't? Oh, we sure did.
Jim didn't ever party.
No, I was too busy working for Rick and my dad.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
sweeping the floor.
that's
right?
good.
Sweeping the floors.
It was funny because it was pitch black on that bridge. So you'd go there and you'd show up and it's like,
Hello.
oh, hi.
Hello.
You couldn't tell who was who.
Really.
Lake water down there too, so that was always a little secret.
That was a nice. I mean, that was
Still
fun
is.
to go, drive on.
Yeah, Dad and I snuck into that big hole one time
Yeah,
and caught a few fish.
yeah.
Nice.
Allegedly.
Oh, and who's getting in trouble now?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
I don't know. We're not worth.
Do you remember
catching.
hanging out at Lakeview late in the summer times? When
Lakeview Drive-In?
Yeah, in the cars
Yeah,
late.
the Riviera.
Yeah.
Quite a few
boy.
nights. at the
Wasn't
Lakeview
Ron
Drive-In.
Ools in your grade?
Ron was in my class. Yep.
I saw Ron knock a kid out. Got off his motorcycle, put his sunglasses down. A tourist was giving him some, and I was on my motorcycle. It was back in the '86 with Top Gun. Everybody
Sure,
had motorcycles
sure.
and cars, and everybody was hanging out. And Ron, he was a tough dude.
Oh, yeah.
He just got off, bam, bam. Guy's laying on the ground, gets back, starts eating his cheeseburger. He's laying down on the ground. Like these, I was thinking like these things don't happen anymore.
No.
Like luckily.
Oh, we'd all park down there in our cars.
You'll appreciate this one. You remember what we did once? We used to say, all right, we drew straws to see who was going to take the tourist guys, because we'd all tell them there was a party
Oh,
at
boy.
Manson, and you have to follow like the blue car.
Yeah. Meet at
Just to
Safeway.
see.
Yeah.
So then you'd only tell the guys. And they'd go get around. You wouldn't tell any of the pretty girls that we were all going. So somebody would take off when the blue car leaves or whatever, follow them.
That's
There'd
the
be
caravan.
like 30, 40 cars. Then we'd ditch them out in Manson, come back to the Lakeview Drive-In, and there was only pretty girls. Then they'd come back and they wanted to say hello to us, and they were very happy. So we got a little trouble.
There's some fun times growing up in a tourist town,
I-
because there's new crop of
Every 2 weeks.
friends.
Every 2 weeks.
Every two.
Rotation.
Yeah.
I can tell a story about Jim.
Okay,
Oh,
let's
sure.
hear a story about
My,
Jim.
my parents were at the house one time, and Jim had a couple of friends at the swimming pool, girls,
Yeah,
And-
clearly.
and Grandpa says he'd gone downstairs, and he says, Jim, there's somebody that wants to see you at the door downstairs. More girls. So
job,
we
Jim.
didn't know whether to let them in or to tell him whether he should.
Yeah, right.
It became a problem when the families changed their normal weeks
Yeah.
for their week stage.
Of course, because you had regulars.
I remember. Thank goodness we didn't have email, Jim. That was good.
Right?
And we didn't have
Just, you
phones
know-
with cameras. That was good.
I had boys. I worked at Lynn's Cookies and Cream.
Oh,
Cookies
yeah.
and cream.
And so I would have boys that would come in during the day or whatever, earlier that
Where was
evening.
Where was Lynn's Cookies and Cream?
Where the bakery is now, the Artisan Bakery in that strip mall
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Okay. And they would come in and get ice cream, and they'd be like, hey, like, where's the parties at or whatever. And I'd be like, okay, come back. We close at 10. Come back, help me close, and then I'll take you to the party. So the boys lifted all those big, heavy rubber mats from the kitchen
thinking.
and
Manipulative.
put up all the chairs, had took the garbage to the dumpster out back. I did not like those jobs. And then I just got to mop and walk out the door. And then we
Off you
rallied to wherever the party was, and they were off, and I was off, and
Officer
it was all
thinking.
good.
Yeah.
And then the next week,
Do it all over.
fresh blood.
You know, a story we didn't talk about was yesterday's. Remember?
Oh, yesterday's, yeah.
Oh, God.
That was a staple. Those pizza witches.
Sure.
Oh, man, that place was.
I remember mastering the Donkey Kong game there, and he wouldn't let me play it anymore because I memorized all. Because I'd play for like 2 hours on one quarter. He'd like, that doesn't make me any money, kid.
Yeah.
Get
I
out.
ate a lot of their sandwiches on
too.
basketball buses.
Yeah. They
Me
were good
too.
people.
That's exactly when I ate it.
And didn't he pass away right after he retired? I can't remember
Yeah.
his name. He was a really nice guy. Though.
Gary Seeger,
Gary
if I
Seeger.
remember right.
Gary.
Yeah, no,
It was like 30 years he was there. He was across the street for a long time, and kind of by like, I just remember him being kind of in that between like BC McDonald's and the mall there,
Wasn't that
somewhere
his
in there.
second location though?
Ye-
Because I
that
thought he
was
was
a-
on the
I
other
think
side
it was-
of
yeah,
the
he was
street.
I think
on
he
the other
moved to
side
the
of
other
the
street.
He
Oh, is
moved-
that what it was? Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's
He
bigger
was here
on the
first
other.
and then across the street.
We had the pool tables then when he
Right.
and all that.
Yeah.
It was a cool place.
It
Yeah.
was such a cool place.
Yeah, Jim would work until it was time to go catch the bus to go to a ball game. And then he'd get on the bus, and then we'd close the store and then go to wherever it was that we was going to play basketball.
Everybody went to all the games, didn't they?
Everybody, yeah, we went to all his games.
Yeah. I was just thinking like that. There was not a lot to do. So
Right.
I'm sorry, there still isn't. I'm going to Manson
could-
basketball games right now.
good for you.
You know.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, It's like, well, we haven't really left the house this week. Let's go. They're having a home game. Let's
No,
go.
it's great. It's what you're doing there is great. Being on the Booster Club, and aren't you in that?
You know, I'm a Manson girl.
Yeah, good.
Gotta do the thing. Gotta
Right.
do all the things. Booster club, coaching tennis.
Got 10 more years of it. So keep at
Yes,
it.
I do.
Well, guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thanks, Jim.
Honestly, you guys, this
touching.
has been so
And,
amazing.
Thank
Loved
you for your
every minute.
friendship, my friend. I'm friends a long time.
Thank you.
And there, go sell something. All right,
Okay.
guys, we're signing off. Thanks.
Okay.
Appreciate you.
Take care. It's been
Bye.
fun.